Hey, well, welcome everybody. It's good to have you all out here. It finally feels like winter, doesn't it, out there? My God, I couldn't believe it this morning. My name is Richard Spires, and I am the IACT chair this year of the IACT organization. So I'm the industry chair this year, and it's fun to do this, and I'm really enjoying my tenure here, my one-year tenure as chair. We've got a lot to cover, so I'm going to move pretty quickly through my part of the agenda to kind of give you guys some updates, because we've got some very important speakers that will be coming up, and we've got a very important thing to do for a number of people here in the room. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the CEO search update, and we'll describe that quickly. Nexus program update. We are going to have the associate's graduation, and then a friend of mine, Tom Michelli, will be joining us to talk about what he's doing, the good work he's doing over at the Department of Defense. Please, everybody should stay afterwards. We do have a networking reception after the event, okay? So first thing we always do is recognize new members, and so before I ask you to stand up, and this is the latest set of new members that we have, company members from the last time we had a membership meeting, I want to say, and I really need to give Carol Miller and April Davis some thanks in particular. They drive our membership on the industry side, and it's really incredible. We're up to 450 members, industry members, and yeah. And that, at the beginning of this year, we had 400, or last year we had 400. So, yeah, we've really started to grow again, and this is the first year we've grown in a while. You know, there's been a lot of consolidation in the industry. So it's just fabulous to see that this organization is doing so well. And so for those of you in either any of the companies that are represented here on this list, or for any new, those of you that are with new member companies that have joined in this last year, if you could stand up and be recognized. So welcome to IACT. It's great to have you as new member companies. Before I talk about upcoming events, there's another recognition that I want to give. You know, we just came off of Imagination ELC 2018, and it was a fabulous event up in Philadelphia. Obviously, there are quite a few in the room here that were there. For those of you that were not able to make it, you did miss a great event. I mean, I think from the standpoint of, you know, we moved to Philadelphia from Williamsburg this year, and so you have a little bit of the settling in issues, so it wasn't perfect. But I'll tell you what, from a content perspective and just how all that went, I think it was fabulous. And I'm not going to try to name names because they've been recognized, but I think one more time, if you served in any kind of planning capacity for this past ELC, for ELC 2018, could you please stand and be recognized? So thank you. I think in reality we had about 50 people or so that were part of the planning this year, which gives you a sense for the scale of what goes on to get ready for that particular conference. So upcoming events. So look at this list, and this is just through December 12th. I mean, this gives you a sense for just how much is going on in this organization. I want to highlight a couple of things. There's a lot going on in the communities of interest. So particularly for those new member companies, we've got 10 different communities of interest. If you have something that you're particularly interested in engaging on, take a look on our website about the COIs. There's something there for everybody, and get engaged. And you can see a number of these have to do with meetings. We've got, for instance, we've got on December 7th, we've got the Networks and Telecommunications COI meeting. On the 11th, we've got the IT&M, Modernization and Management Community of Interest COI. So there's always those kinds of things going on. We've got a number of other key things going on. For instance, we've got a number of Federal Insights Exchange programs. Rod Turk from the Department of Commerce will be presenting on December 5th as an example. Professional development, and we're going to be talking more about that later, but there is a virtual recruiting event going on December 11th, and we've got another Federal Insights Exchange program going on December 12th with Department of Interior. Could I have the next slide? Even more. I wanted to point out we've got a volunteer event coming up on December 15th at the Arlington National Cemetery, A Wreath Across America 2018. The fellows have their holiday party on December 18th. A couple things that are further out, Acquisition Excellence, which is always one of our major conferences, is going to be March 12th of this coming year. And the next membership meeting, this meeting, will be held, we do it every quarter, will be held on March 20th. Okay? If we could go to the next. Yes, thank you. Igniting Innovation will actually be held, which is another one of our major conferences, will be held in May. We don't have the date nailed down yet. But the reason that we're showing this to you now is one of the big things we do at Igniting Innovation is we give out a set of awards for innovation. And so that nominations are open. They're due on January 18th. And so if you have a project, you're involved with an initiative that you think is worthy because of the innovation of that initiative or project, we are looking for nominations. And we're also looking for volunteers if you're interested in helping with that particular conference. And you can contact Mike Howell there at mhowell@actiact.org. And next slide. I am going fast because we have a lot to cover. The other thing is that we have a new special project, and this is really important. You know, ACT-IAC has not done that much in the whole world of data. Data management and focusing on data and the use of data and machine learning and the like. But if you look at the President's management agenda, the number two priority has to do with all about data, data and accountability. And so we're reaching out and we're going to be doing a special project around data. It's called Data-Driven Decision Making, focused on implementing the federal data strategy. And so we're looking for volunteers. And again, if you're working in the world of data, data management, and AI and machine learning, this might be of some interest to you. If you have further interest in this, please, again, contact Mike Howell at mhowell@actiact.org. Okay? We're open for the next set of professional development classes. This will be partners and associates. More information can be found at our website. Casey Harris, who is, I know, in the room because I saw her earlier, or she's here. If you have any interest in this, you can contact her at caseyharris@actiact.org. All right? Just a little bit about what this means. The Associates Program, and I know we're going to be graduating our associates from this year, but this is really about those that are earlier in their career and about helping you in fostering and building skills and capabilities younger in your career. And if I could have the next slide. We're really looking for those that have up to 5 years professional experience. If you're in the government, up to the kind of at the GS7, the GS11 categories, and really considered to be a rising star. And you know, I have to admit, I have not gone through one of the programs, but I've really come to admire what we do here with our development programs and the real interaction you get between government and industry. And I think that is one of the primary reasons. And having myself worked on both sides, I can now, as I'm later in my career, reflect on the fact that, boy, it would have been great to have that experience earlier in my career. So the Partners Program is kind of on the opposite end of that. We're looking for those that are closer to the executive level, that are preparing for roles as SES or company officer roles in their companies. And if I could have the next slide. These are on the federal level. We're looking for those that are in the GS 15 or 14 kind of levels, looking to be promoted into the kind of SES ranks within the next 3 to 5 years. And from the industry side, we're looking for those that are 15 years plus with experience and are looking to be promoted into senior levels again within the next 3 to 5 years. So I would urge all of you to consider this. If you haven't been part of these kinds of programs and you're at these kind of stages within your career, everybody, I mean everybody I've ever talked to that's now a fellow that's gone through these kind of programs speaks very, very highly of what they got out of the programs. Okay? So let me set this up. Ken Allen, who has been a great leader of this organization, the executive director of ACT-IAC for the last 14 years, will be leaving us. The plan is to transition within the springtime. By our bylaws, what we did was we set up a search committee. The members of the search committee, and it is dictated as to the kind of the members, not by name, but by kind of position. So Ellen Glover is the chair of our search committee. She's a former IAC chair. Which was dictated by the bylaws. We had to have someone as a former IAC chair. And then we had to pick members from the existing IAC executive committee, okay? And so Paul Strasser, who's our he's here, he's in the back. He's our executive vice chair and will be taking over for me come the summer, is on the committee. We also have Mitzi Mead, the former chair, Kathy Conrad, and Jonathan Albaum. So they're already busy looking at how we're going to go about recruiting our next, what we're going to be calling our ACT-IAC CEO. And they came to the board, they came to the executive committee and said, hey, we've talked about this, and we really, really think it's important that we hire an executive search firm, that we want to make sure that we take the time, we do this right, and we find the right individual to lead this organization into the future. And so the executive committee met on that and approved them going out and actually retaining a search firm. They went through a process. I believe they looked at 5 different firms, ran a real competition. And so recently we hired one of the leading search firms in the world, actually, Korn Ferry. And Rod Michelli, who is here today and will be speaking with you momentarily, is someone I've known for years. And so we're very pleased to have Korn Ferry doing this for us, and particularly Rob as one of the leads on this. And just to give you a sense for Rob's actually been with Korn Ferry since 1998, so he's got an extensive background in doing this kind of work. And in particular, he focuses on firms, technology-based companies, professional services firms, government systems integrators, software and product firms, okay? And he's done multiple executive searches within the public sector technology marketplace. And I think he's even done some searches in the association world that support this marketplace. So he's got spot-on capabilities and experience for us. So with that, I'm going to actually turn it over to Rob at this point, let him spend about 10 minutes, talk to you in more detail about what's going on with this. So Rob, welcome.
Well, thank you, Richard. Very, very kind words. Getting nice to meet you all. I will say on behalf of the Korn Ferry team, we are certainly delighted and very pleased that we were chosen for this search, and you can be sure that we're going to give it our very best efforts to find you this next leader and this next chapter for ACT-IAC. So I think it's exciting times, and again, I think you've had great leadership in the last dozen or so plus years, and now it's the time to hand over the baton to the next person, he or she. There is a Korn Ferry team behind this. Myself, and obviously you've seen my bio, I've got lots of background in the government technology products and services world over many, many years, and I've also done work for other associations in this arena. But there's also Lorraine Lavitt, who couldn't be here today, and Becky Graham. Lorraine is also a long-serving Korn Ferry partner, and she leads Korn Ferry's association practice. and she literally has conducted probably 100+ association CEO searches over the last 10 years, and is probably the expert in the country. So very pleased to have Lorraine on the team, and she'll be a real driving force. And Becky Graham will also be another Korn Ferry asset that works, again, almost 100% in the association realm. So I think we've got a great team assembled here. We are certainly driving towards a very transparent process. One of the reasons why I wanted to be here today was to kind of give you guys a face of the team behind this project. At the same time, though, it's very important to maintain confidentiality, with the candidates, who are putting their names in the ring, and so we're going to be managing, that process, very closely to certainly keep it transparent, but at the same time, keep people's reputations and confidentiality in check. We've had a great experience so far partnering with the IAC Search Committee. I think Mitzi's there in the front row, so thank you, Mitzi, so far for all your work, and we'll be working with you a lot the next several weeks and to drive this process forward. And certainly Ellen Glover is, as you know, is leading the charge. So you're in great hands there with the search committee. In terms of the process, we are currently now conducting a lot of extensive stakeholder outreach. We've reached out to all of the board members. We've reached out all to the search committee members. We've also reached out to some of the government members, and we're really trying to understand the dimensions of the role. We're in a listening mode. We're very much focused on trying to get a good grasp of the leadership style, the background, the experiences that you, the members, are looking for in your next leader. And we'll take all that information. We're also conducting some other assessments of leadership traits and cultural fit, and we'll bake that into a formalized position specification. That becomes the kind of our guiding, blueprint for the search. And we anticipate that specification, that profile to be finalized the next couple of weeks. It will be posted online. It will be a public document. And we certainly want to actively encourage all of the membership to review that. And certainly, as you have nominations, ideas, recommendations of candidates, we absolutely want your input. And so certainly, and you can do that directly on the Korn Ferry site once that's posted. If you want to be more proactive and you've got ideas today you want to share for this leadership role, my colleague Becky Graham, I think we have a contact information there on the screen. So you can also email Becky Graham directly or contact Becky Graham directly with your recommendations, and all recommendations from all sources will go through the same process and the same filter. So there'll be a very rigorous approach to this. In terms of next steps, once we do finalize the ideal candidate background and we finish our listening and data gathering, we will also, the Korn Ferry team, actively and proactively, begin our candidate outreach and our own networking. So it's through that, those different mechanisms of nominations. Obviously, people will be applying directly themselves, and we'll be conducting our own executive outreach in different markets. And so it's a very comprehensive and a very thorough process. We will be providing regular updates to the search committee on that process. And I think we certainly anticipate that December and January will be spent conducting that, extensive and thorough outreach. And certainly there's a certain rigor around how we evaluate candidates against the search criteria. In terms of just expectations and timing, we anticipate that the long list of candidates will be kind of boiled down and presented to the search committee, in that February timeframe. We certainly would expect that active interviewing with the search committee and a down select, to a finalist group will occur in the in that February-March period, and we're certainly driving towards a selection of a finalist candidate in that March time frame. It's very difficult to be precise with dates because we're dealing with the human factor, and that's unpredictable at best. But we're going to be driving this, and certainly you can expect no stone to be left unturned. So that's really my main points today. And again, just want to thank you all for choosing Korn Ferry, well, certainly the search committee. And again, given our background and our knowledge of the marketplace and our experience in conducting these searches, we're very excited about bringing you a new CEO and continuing with the unique aspects of ACT-IAC and the role you will play now and going forward. So again, thank you all.
Okay, so now I'd like to turn and introduce Mr. John Burchell and Gabby Feeble. If they're both here, there's John. Gabby may not yet have made it.
I believe Gabby's driving in right now.
Okay, well, she can rush up here when she arrives, right? So, John?
Hey, appreciate it. All right, good evening. Just to start off, I just want to ask, we're actually trying to brand Nexus right now. Who here in the room has heard of Nexus or been to one of our events? All right, excellent. So we're doing okay then. All right, great. So as Richard was saying, I'm the government chair for Nexus, and it's definitely a pleasure to be here to present. Actually went through the associates program, and I think this was the exact stage. So as I'm talking, you guys are definitely a target market, but so this is a great way to stay involved, with ACT-IAC and piggyback from there. And my partner's here now, so you can come on up, Gabby. So our pillars, and just to start off, what is Nexus? We actually came up with a branding statement. So we're a dynamic, forward-thinking group of individuals that are poised to pick up the torch and lead the conversations of change into a 21st century workforce. We build the next generation of U.S. leaders by bringing together industry and government through quarterly events, mentorship, and community service activities, and we do this all while serving the federal IT marketplace. We're based off of 3 pillars. I think in the bread and butter of what ACT-IAC does is connecting and collaborating with other emerging leaders from government to industry. And we definitely take this one step further. We want to, put out there that we have a lot of fun at the same time. With what we do. We're having a Christmas party. We've worked really hard this past year, so our next leadership meeting is actually going to be just a good old Christmas party to celebrate some of the accomplishments that we're going to talk about and some of the ways that you can get involved. And also developing leadership skills. So not just from being on a leadership board, but developing skills after you leave the associates program. In the audience, we've had several of you as speakers. So we definitely run the gamut from people who have been associates. We've had partners in our program, as well as voyagers. And lastly, and probably most importantly, serving. We believe in Nexus. When we serve others, we're serving ourselves. This is a nonprofit. We're all looking to better the IT workforce and do that together. So serving is a huge part of what we do at Nexus. Next slide. Good to see you.
All right. Good afternoon, everybody. So John told you a little bit about Nexus, kind of what our pillars are, what our mission is. But this is what we actually do. So we have events. That's kind of what we're most known for. Most of our events are very content driven. There's always like a theme or a topic. This year, actually, all of our events kind of followed one particular theme, and we actually have one next week. John's going to talk about that. So community service, as John mentioned earlier, serve is one of our pillars, one of the most important ones. And for John and I, this one is particularly special to us because after the associates, which we both graduated from in 2015, we were part of the volunteer corps, and the volunteer corps is now part of Nexus. So the community service activities, and they're on the next chart too, but we do 4, so 1 every quarter. One of them is Honor Flight, which if you haven't done, you should totally do. It's amazing. There's Operation Jumpstart. We do get involved with a STEM fair locally, DC Central Kitchen and Reese Across America. And then networking. So this is a good chart to keep. So networking, John talked a little bit about, you become a leader not only through going to events and being active in the community, but also just, meeting new people, trying to get involved. And we do that through happy hours. We have a mentor match event, which is actually really wonderful. We have executive leaders and peer mentors across industry and government who attend the mentor match. And we have ELC, the pre-ELC meetup and membership meetings. So that's just kind of what we do. It's actually a really awesome group. Sorry, I'm a little nervous. I ran in here, so I'm probably shaking a little bit. But it's actually a really awesome group. We're still trying to expand. We're still trying to grow, so that's probably why you don't know a lot about us yet. But we do have a strong core, and really anyone is a leader. Anyone is a next generation leader, so it doesn't need to be in a particular age bracket. It's really anyone could get involved in Nexus. And next chart.
All right, I want you to ingrain this vision into your mind. This is a great event that we have coming up. We've had 2 quarterly events. The first one, how to build successful teams, how to motivate them, and this is going to be the culminating event of inspiring a shared vision from the cubicle to the boardroom. And it made me think of a motivational speaker that said, where he asked the question, I think it was Les Brown, where do the best ideas and the best inventions and some of the greatest visions end up? And he said they end up in the graveyard. And that sounds, of course, incredibly morbid. But what he's getting at is that how many people have watched Shark Tank and said, oh, I had that idea, or you've been in a meeting and you didn't have that courage, or perhaps you lacked a little bit of that soft skill to say, I have this great idea, I have this vision, perhaps I'm a lower level employee. Is this the right time? Is this the right person? How do I present? So in this forum, inspiring a shared vision, we're going to touch upon a lot of those soft skills that sort of help you get ready so that you can deliver that vision and you can be a leader regardless if you're sitting in a cubicle or if you're in the boardroom. It's going to be broken out. We're actually going to have some technical aspects to the day as well. We're going to have acquisition experts, contracting officer from the Department of Veterans Affairs, from GSA FedSim, as well as capture management. Kim Pack is going to be moderating that one. So for those who know Kim, it's going to be a good one. And as well, we're going to have also building buy-in for your vision and creative innovation, as well as working with your acquaintances. So please, if you can't make it, even if you can't make it, which we hope you can, again, it's next Wednesday from 8 a.m. to noon. We definitely ask that you share it with your colleagues. Take that step to do it, because I think that what we have shown with Nexus is that we really put on some amazing quality events, and a big shout out to our team. There was a lot of work that's gone into putting this one together, and it even started off with Richard Spires coming to our offsite event and giving us some mentorship. It started back in August for this year, and it's built up all the way up to this event. So we definitely hope that you take advantage of it, and I think you'll be surprised, regardless of where you're at in your career. I think you'll walk away, with picking up some sort of skill that the next time that the moment catches you, you'll have the right wherewithal, the right confidence to step forward through that door and make sure that your vision is heard loud and clear. So definitely please partake in that if you can. And with that, I think it's all we've got for Nexus. So we're going to keep an eye on you associates as things go forward. So definitely stay involved as you graduate. The Nexus will be a great way to pick up that torch. Gabby and I, it's kind of crazy just to think that, that we ended up here. So, answer that call when opportune. We definitely ask that you share it with your colleagues. take that step to do it, because I think that what we have shown with Nexus is that we really put on some amazing quality events, and a big shout out to our team. There was a lot of work that's gone into putting this one together, and it even started off with Richard Spires coming to our offsite event and giving us some mentorship. It started back in August for this year, and it's built up all the way up to this event. So we definitely hope that you take advantage of it, and I think you'll be surprised, regardless of where you're at in your career. I think you'll walk away with picking up some sort of skill that the next time that the moment catches you, you'll have the right wherewithal, the right confidence to step forward through that door and make sure that your vision is heard loud and clear. So definitely please partake in that if you can. And with that, I think it's all we've got for Nexus. So we're going to keep an eye on you associates as things go forward. So definitely stay involved as you graduate. The Nexus will be a great way to pick up that torch. Gabby and I, it's kind of crazy just to think that that we ended up here. So answer that call when opportunity comes, because you'll be surprised where it takes you. So thank you.
Thanks, Gabby and John, for that. Now we want to turn to a very important thing, and to the graduation for our associates. And so we're going to let the government and industry chair, Sam Navarro and Kim Pack, come up, and they will be master of ceremonies for this.
Fight over this. Yeah. Good evening. I'm Kimberly Pack with Wolfden Associates and the industry chair for the class of 2018 associates.
My name is Sam Navarro. I am from the General Services Administration, and I am the government chair this year for the 2018 associates.
So, our professional development programs are very important here at IAC. Can I have everyone who's been through one of the programs, whether it's the associates, the Voyagers, or the partners, please stand? Please stand. We'd love to recognize all of you. Excellent. Thank you so much. And before we get started,
Passion to the program that made this year's course a success. Thank you for willingly putting in your time and staying the long hours. Of course, all associates sessions are, of course, after hours. And dedicating yourself throughout this year. We couldn't have done it without you. Thank you very much.
and with that, our class worked very hard this year. We took on a community-based project as a class, and we'd like to show you what that was all about.
You know, we definitely ask that you share it with your colleagues. You know, take that step to do it, because I think that what we have shown with Nexus is that we really put on some amazing quality events, and a big shout out to our team. There was a lot of work that's gone into putting this one together, and it even started off with Richard Spires coming to our offsite event and giving us some mentorship. It started back in August for this year, and it's built up all the way up to this event. So we definitely hope that you take advantage of it.
What were some of the things that you hoped that participants would be able to get out of this?
Absolutely. So one of our main goals, and definitely one of my personal goals in particular, was making sure that the participants from UrbanEd had a true immersive experience. We wanted to make sure that it was hands-on, that everything they were doing throughout the day was interactive and fun, and they would leave with a true experience.
What was your biggest takeaway from that event?
Yeah, I think for me it was getting to see firsthand the mission of UrbanEd and the people that are involved with the program and kind of learning what it is that they want to take away and sort of hearing more about their journey of what's brought them to UrbanEd and what they're looking for.
One of the kind of interactive components we had was about knowing your customer, which is really important in the IT field if you're going after work for a specific agency. And the UrbanEd audience was able to kind of put it into terms that they understood.
So Andrew, with UrbanEd, what was your biggest takeaway from the event that we hosted with them?
Really for me, it was just how professional and energetic and passionate these students were. I had some amazing conversations with them. They were super knowledgeable about their skill sets, what we were presenting them. I'm just super excited for us to be there that day.
So Megan, obviously you put together some slides regarding cybersecurity for the UrbanEd folks. What was your biggest learning objective that you had in mind as you put those slides together?
I think the biggest learning objective was to show them the wide variety in careers within cybersecurity. You can be an IT auditor, you can be much more on the program management side, so showing them that variety and helping them understand why cybersecurity is such a big field right now.
So having partnerships where folks can do skill-based volunteering and bring their expertise to the table is very beneficial for UrbanEd through like boot camps, through helping us do mock interviewing and helping us do a lot of hands-on activities and just being mentors to those that we serve that are trying to find their first career within IT.
You're technically on this right here.
Oh, you're recording. We're just
I'll obviously ask it. Do you want to practice?
I guess we can just wing it, We can ask you the question and then we'll just
that might help me kind of, like, my brain's not starting.
Okay. We can edit this out.
So, are you filming right now?
No.
She probably is.
Yeah, she probably is.
Congratulations to you. That class project was excellent. Before we move on to name all of our graduates today, we just want to put out a reminder that applications are open for the next associates class in 2019. They're open, I believe, until January 5th, 4th, if I can see that far, I would read it, right? And so are the partners applications. So these are great programs to put your folks in. If you have anyone that you're thinking about putting through, you still have time. With that, let's go ahead. We want you guys to stand and stay standing as your name is called. Okay, Keisha, Jared, Andrew, Megan, Emily, Catherine, Christopher, Dennis, Amanda, Aaron, oh, I lost my, Theodore, Anthony, Liz, Jasmine,
Natalie, Murnmay, Eric, Daniel, Ashley, Garrett, Doug, Kara, Brendan, Megan, Andrew, Haley, Steve, Dawn, and of course, Jay. Congratulations.
Congratulations, graduates. Thank you.
And so on behalf of ACT-IAC leadership, I'd like to offer my congratulations to all of the new associates and now fellows. You're all new, right? Do I have that right, Mitzi? No? No, you don't get to be a fellow? I don't know all these things, right? I will learn. Not yet. You got more to do, so. Okay. Hey, so it's my pleasure, and to introduce a gentleman that I would call a friend of mine, and someone that it's always great to see leaders in government do so well, and Tom really fits this category. So Tom Michelli is currently the acting Deputy Chief Information Officer for Cybersecurity within the Department of Defense. Office of the Chief Information Officer. And just to give you a sense for scale, DoD spends approximately $8 billion a year now, $8 billion a year on cybersecurity. The reason that I know Tom is that he and I had a chance to work closely together for a couple years when I was at the Department of Homeland Security. And he actually served in two different roles there. He came in as the CIO at ICE, and then moved on over and became the CIO at the U.S. Coast Guard, where we had a chance to work very closely for a while. And so with that, I'm excited that he was able to join us today to talk about what he's doing over at the Department of Defense. So with that, Tom, welcome.
Thank you so much. Okay, so how many folks here have ever worked with Secretary Mattis? A couple of you, okay. One of the things, whenever you interact with him, it doesn't go too long before you start getting either subtle or not so subtle messages about ethos, value, and integrity. And so I've always thought I had those things, but with him around, I think about them even more. And coming off of Thanksgiving week, I hope everybody had a safe, easy, enjoyable, fun Thanksgiving. I realize one of the things that I neglect a lot is thanks and gratitude. And so what I want to start off with, thanks to Richard. Not only did he get me helped get me into ICE and U.S. Coast Guard in really enjoyable and fun roles, but he got me into ACT-IAC, and he's been a great mentor for a long, long time. But also just thanks for you and everybody who does everything that makes the magic happen. For example, April, I saw a lot of people giving April hugs. She helps run this show. In fact, I'm told she runs everything in ACT-IAC. We've got Angela, we've got Nikolai, who's a Russian name, but she's really not Russian. There in the back. Nikolai, if you could raise your hand. We've got Lamar, who hooks me up. And we've got John, who's running my slides for me. So I want to give them all a big thanks. And I'm thankful for being here today. I'm very thankful for being with industry and government who are doing great things for our nation, for friends here like General Tuhill back there somewhere, who's also a mentor. Mimi, I'm sure I'm going to miss a bunch, but that's an important thing about getting here to these events is networking, get some mentorship, and start paying it back and paying it forward. So my value for the day, the week, the month, the year is thankfulness and gratitude. So let's go ahead and get started. On the next slide, Secretary Mattis is great because he's very clear on what he wants. And Secretary Shanahan, Patrick Shanahan, is very clear that he works for Secretary Mattis and is very clear to everybody what we want. And that is strategy, right? Everything that we do within the department, and this is the answer in the back of the book. This is me teaching you how to fish if you want to do business or if you want to work in the Department of Defense. And I strongly encourage you to work either as a contractor or as a government civilian, or go out and join the military and come work with the Department of Defense because it's a great organization to work for. He is laser focused on strategy and communicating that strategy down and aligning every resource, every muscle movement of a human, every dollar spent, every machine cog turned into supporting the national defense strategy, the national military strategy, the federal cyber strategy, the DoD or defense cyber strategy, and then in the DoD CIO, we will be publishing an identity and credential access management strategy. We've published a cloud strategy. That's the book, folks. If you want to come to DoD and you want to help the nation, do a little bit of homework, look those up, and I can tell you everything we're going to talk to you about, everything we're going to ask you about, it's in the book, right? There's the answer in the back of the book. So that's the high-level piece. So based on the National Defense Strategy and the key pieces of the National Defense Strategy are 3 lines of effort. If you've ever been in the military, we always talk about lines of effort. This is where you put your effort behind. The first one is lethality. If you're a Marine, and if you're in particular Secretary Mattis, you'll say, I want to be your best friend and your worst enemy. So we need to be able to go out there and build partnerships and relationships so that people trust us and we can rely on them. And then if you're not our friend, we want to unleash some really neat lethality on you. And then how do we do the best for the taxpayer and have money to invest in new technologies? As part of that National Defense Strategy, if you haven't read it, it's going to be talking about its great war competition, great power competition. We're back from, the coin will always be there, counterinsurgency, counterterrorism will always be there, but now on the rise, so we're not fighting the last battle. The new battle is great power competition. So how do we get money to we're no longer far ahead in competition and technology and other things with the other great powers. Read the National Defense Strategy, will tell you who those 2 are if you can't guess. We need to find money to pay for that. The President, the nation has given us a lot of money, but we still need to find more money to do better things, so reform is a big part of this. So if you're in the business of providing anything to do with lethality that's in our world, Spectrum, great command control systems, great weapon systems, great ways for soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marine, and Coast Guardmen and women to do their job, that's lethality. If you're out there helping us build networks that connect us with our partners, communicate with our partners securely, that's part of the National Defense Strategy. If you're there to help us do the financial audit, right? We owe the nation how we're spending the money. If you do anything with financial audit, anything with business systems, ERPs, I saw ServiceNow as a partner here. If you're doing anything that helps us run the business of the department and help us do it faster, cheaper, smarter, more securely, that's reform. And we are laser focused on those 3 lines of effort. So how does the DoD CEO, my boss, Dana Deasy, support the National Defense Strategy? Because again, it's all about nesting. The national strategy, national defense strategy, now national military strategy, and what we do for that. Mr. Deasy came up with 4 lines of effort. And first and foremost is cyber. Everything we need to do, and it's across everything the department does, is we need to do it securely. Back to that competitive overmatch or beating the great powers. If they're taking our IP and we're paying for it, we're giving them lethality for free. We don't want to do that anymore. The next thing, can we go back a slide, please? So that's around the digital modernization. You see the National Defense Strategy, you got lethality, you got reform, you got partnerships. Inside the outer ring is Mr. Deasy's pillars. First one was cyber. The next one's artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence hits all across the board. If we can take radar streams, surveillance streams, and we can assess what really is a bad guy or a bad girl, what the important things are, what's a distraction, we can unleash that lethality in the right spot at the right time, and even hopefully ahead of time. We can get ahead of the puck. If you're a hockey player, their coach is always saying you got to get ahead of the puck. AI can help us do that. AI can help us in reform. One of the neat things I saw recently was we are one of the largest buyers of prescription medicine in the world. If we can capture that and place AI on it, and we can see the sequence of events where somebody gets a prescription on this, and later on they get a prescription on this, and later on they get a prescription on this, we can perhaps say, oh, this person's on the track to this type of ailment. If we do this up ahead, we'll be paying less in the long run. AI has great impact on medicine. We'll be talking in a minute about the thing called Joint Artificial Intelligence Center. Another one is logistics. If we have the right part, only the amount of parts we need, at the right place at the right time, we save money and we enhance lethality because of the readiness of that aircraft, that tank, that soldier, sailor, airman, and Coast Guardsman. And always remember, the Coast Guard is the 5th Armed Force of the United States. Will be more lethal and more ready for us. And then C3 is our networks. We have a huge technical debt, whether it's our unclassified network, secret network, top secret network, or all the networks that connect our critical infrastructure and our weapon systems. We have a lot of work to do there. And we can't do any of the other things unless that basic plumbing, that basic transportation system is up, ready, capable, and secure for it. And then cloud. You'll probably heard a lot about cloud in the papers, especially if you're here in the DC area. Can't talk a whole lot much about that, but we're interested in cloud. We'll be doing a lot in cloud, and I'll talk a little bit more about it because some of the acquisitions that are out there, I can't talk too much about it. So takeaway here is, and this is the answer in the back of the book, everything we do is a national defense strategy. There's a thing that's done in the department with Secretary Mattis. It's called a large group meeting, which is kind of surprising because it's less than 20 people. So a small group must be like one person. But it talks about the national defense strategy and how we're progressing towards it. He mentions its priorities against the national defense strategy. Quarterly, he brings in all of the services, Army, Navy, Marine Corps, and says, how are you doing against the national defense strategy? Quarterly. He brings in the fourth estate, which are the agencies like DISA, Defense Information Systems Agency, the DFAS, Defense Financial Accounting Service. They come in and say how they're supporting the national defense strategy. The COCOMs come in and say how they're going to support the national defense strategy. So if you want to do business with us, just go to the book. And all the way down to what Mr. Deasy puts out for cloud strategy, ICAM strategy, and cyber strategy. Next slide, please. So as we talk about this, it's all about how we increase lethality, how we increase partnerships, how we reduce risk in cyber. And one of the first things is fundamental is that cloud. There, we will have a multi-cloud environment. We will have what's called a general purpose cloud, and that's pretty much platform as a service or infrastructure as a service that we would try to get as much as we can. It won't be all of it, but as much as we can into certain clouds. That we'll have what Mr. Deasy calls fit-for-purpose clouds, and this would be something like a back office suite or an office automation suite that we get as a service. Mostly the software as a service clouds will be fit-for-purpose clouds. We will have certain things inside the department because for a variety of reasons, their legacy systems, it's just going to be easier to keep it into a private cloud within the department. But across the board, cloud is going to be an ever-increasing way we spend our money and support the national defense strategy. Around the cloud, you have to have big data to make artificial intelligence work well. We talked about those prescriptions. We have billions and billions of prescription records that we can apply AI against. In cyber, we have billions and billions of attacks that we can apply machine learning and artificial intelligence against to automatically react to it, or even, hopefully, predict where it's going to hit next and get ahead of it. Again, getting ahead of that puck. And then lastly, none of that's going to work unless we can get all that good stuff wherever it needs to go. And you'll hear a lot about, in the National Defense Strategy, the tactical edge. And this is disadvantaged intermittent connection and low latency connection units. In the past, we looked at the big stuff in the back. We dealt with that first, and then we moved right to the distant end. Now there's a lot of focus on, again, that lethality. How are we going to deliver to that warfighter wherever they are on the edge of the battlefield? Whether it's a ship at sea, whether it's somebody in Afghanistan at a forward operating base, if it's somebody over the Arctic in an aircraft, wherever they are, how do we connect that whole thing? And if we don't have appropriate command control communications and computers, that won't happen. Next slide, please. So one of the things that Mr. Deasy was given when he first came in is, again, how do we rally everything that we're doing in the department, and not just us, but you all. One of the things that we keep talking about is that competitive overmatch. We cannot do that without the industrial base. And of course, we started out thinking about the defense industrial base, and that's very, very important to us, me in particular, because this is my job jar and I'm responsible for it. But back to that partnerships and alliances, we cannot fight without our federal partners or alliance partners, the coalition partners. So we're now talking about a federal industrial base. I don't know if that's officially coined yet or not, but we have meetings, regular battle with them with Department of Homeland Security, Department of Justice, Department of Treasury, and others, Department of Energy. In fact, there was one that was just signed by Secretary Nielsen and Secretary Mattis that really gave us some more focus and direction on that side of the House. And so as he goes out, the National Defense Strategy, this is where we're supposed to be putting our money, right? So, and our money, even though we have a $45 billion spend, give or take, in the Department of Defense and IT, it really almost all goes to the services. So we've got to go out and we've got to talk to the Chief of Staff of the Army and the Secretary of the Army and say, instead of upgrading this tank or buying this new helicopter, we want you to invest in these things. We've got to show how all this interacts. And so in this placemat, we're going to go from kind of left to right, And again, if you're doing business with us, we have what's called steady state, and we're going to keep doing that. But as we invest and we focus and we're asking for help, this is where we're going to be asking for help. So network and info sharing and cyber force, this is called the first four. So there's 10. Of the 10, there's first four we're focusing on first and putting most of our gray cells into. And that is, if you want to fire a weapon system somewhere out on the distant edge, a lot of it's done now back at home station or somewhere else, not on the distant edge. So when a person pushes that button, how do we know that the system that they're operating on is secure, safe, and is actually going to do their job? If we don't have endpoint security, if we don't have perimeter defense, when they go to push that button, it's not going to be there. Then if they get there, how do we know it's Tom Michelli and not somebody that shouldn't be pushing that button? And that's where we have identity and credential access management. Then as they push that button, that application that's running on that secure endpoint with the person supposed to be able to push that button and has the authority to push that button, if that application doesn't work or injects something that shouldn't be in that stream when the button's pushed, that's not good either. So this is where we have software application development. How all this translates is network products, spectrum products, transport, multi-factor authentication, biometrics. Secure application development includes agile development, secure development, tools to check the code. So you can see where we're going with where we're going to do our investments in the first four. The other one is cyber workforce. I think it was Gartner, maybe it was ISC Squared that said over the next 5 to 10 years there's going to be 2 million person shortage across the nation in cyber workforce. So we're very interested in how we train, retain cyber workforce. So you go cross right, as you push that button and it's all secure, it's got transit the network. Well, we have lots of networks in the Department of Defense. So cross domains. Do everybody know what a cross domain is? Anybody who does not know what a cross domain is? How about that? No? Okay. So the cross domains, are they working? They secure? Is the encryption right? In fact, back to mission partners, we have to fight with our coalition partners. If those cross domains don't work right, and believe me, it's a very complex matrices. I was on a panel with Mr. General Tuchel back over there not too long ago, and we were talking about how we do this faster, smarter, cheaper, better. Microsegmentation, virtual networks, virtual desktops, because we might have one partner who's willing to share with us, but nobody else. Or they may be willing to share with us and one other nation certain things. We need to be able to stand these up very quickly, make sure we're meeting all our treaty agreements, and that we're not spreading information to people that this partner doesn't want that partner to know. Otherwise, we miss out because that partner's not going to share with us anymore. Encryption, quantum. I don't know if you, in the paper, many of you may know that China has put a big bet in quantum. So what happens if they win in quantum? Well, they get a lot of 80-pound heads and intelligent people that we should be working for us, working for them. Secondly, the encryption and all those cross domains won't work because if they can apply quantum against our encryption, it just is plain as day. If you've ever seen The Matrix and it's in front of the guy's face and he just understands it all, that's what quantum will do. So we need to invest in quantum-resistant encryption, quantum-resistant systems, and we need to have our own ability to use quantum against our adversaries. Again, that competitive overmatch. Artificial intelligence I talked about, the cloud I talked about, these are all enablers to how we send that signal to the distant edge. Position, navigation, and timing. Our weapon systems, we're very focused now on cyber and our weapon systems. Many of these systems were built, designed back when interconnectivity wasn't really a thought. So now we're looking at how we secure existing legacy systems and how we move forward in new contracts and new development and new acquisitions to ensure that cyber is built in from the get-go. And as I mentioned, we realize that we can't fight if we don't have the power back at home station. We can't support the industrial base is going to provide the logistics, the ammunition, the beans, the bullets, the education for our workforce, whether it be in cyber or anything else. And then the IT supply chain risk. Many of you have probably read in the new National Defense Act that we've actually banned certain suppliers, specifically Chinese suppliers, because of concerns about the risks accepting it into our network. And we'll be looking more and more into how we protect the supply chain. So everything that we do when we go in and we talk to the military departments, we talk amongst ourselves, we talk to the Secretary of Defense, we focus on the National Defense Strategy, the 4 pillars, how these top 10 things, either bringing down risk or adding capability, are going to support the Secretary's 3 lines of effort. This is the book. You want to know what we're looking at, I just gave it to you. And everything you'll see in talks, everything you see in industry days, go to industry days, by the way. If you're interested in working with the DoD or anybody else, federal government, you see an industry day, run to it, because it gives you the answer. It's the back of the book. You'll be more effective for your company, you'll be more effective for us, you'll be more effective for the nation. Next slide, please. Questions. So I'm willing to take questions. I'm eager to take questions. First question, answer is yes, Ohio State's going to go to a bowl game. Wasn't it great that they beat Michigan? Dr. Berry, how are you doing?
Thanks for coming out. The bigger question, who's going to win tonight, Maryland or Virginia in basketball, is really the bigger question. One of the things you touched on, Tom, which I think was really good, is obviously cyber is really key. But as you move out on artificial intelligence, what is the overall strategy in protecting the control systems from a cyber break? And as you move out in artificial intelligence across all of DoD, it seems like those control systems, if they get hacked, that is going to be a major concern with some of the missions that you're supporting throughout the world.
Yeah, so there's two parts to that. One, as I mentioned, artificial intelligence is one of Mr. Deasy's pillars. In fact, when he came in from industry, one of the things the Deputy Secretary told him is you're going to help build out artificial intelligence capability in the Department of Defense. So we're standing up a thing called the Joint Artificial Intelligence Center, the JAIC. We have funding for it, both from the department, as well as Congress has been very good to us in helping us stand that up. The way it's going to work is, again, that human capital. We're going to send people out, get educated. We're going to find educated people. We're going to rotate them through the JAIC on a rotational basis. So we build that up and propagate it back out to the departments. Hopefully you guys don't, the industry here doesn't take too many of them from us. We need some government folks too. We'll bring some industry and academia in as well. What they do is they have a list of national mission initiatives. And so the departments get together and they say, of all the things that we want to do that will best apply AI to our high priorities across lethality, alliances, partnerships, and reform, this is what we want to focus on. And it will not be totally within the JAIC. The JAIC is a consortium, a collaboration, a confederation, just to making sure that we're all aligned across the department. Right now, the first one I can think of has primacy, mostly because the F-35. You probably read a lot about this in the news. The logistics systems on the F-35 are vast and big. If we can use AI to help predict, where the parts need to be, it's just so much better. And not just parts, but you also may have read about ships. We have lots of ships in shipyards. How do we make sure they can get in, get out very quickly? Applying that to industrial control systems. As we get more and more data, one of the big things is inventory. We continually find, as we go out and search for things, that we thought we had the denominator, and then we find 10 or 15 or 16 more. So when we get this into the inventory of the database, the age, the models, the types, we can apply around them the circuitry controls that are around them, and then we can apply how we can best either fix it, replace it, or wrap it. Whether or not that's going to be one of the first parts of the national mission initiatives, we'll find out, because we're continuing to roll those out. So answer is AI is big. How we would apply that to industrial control systems is all about inventory, understanding what's out there, understanding what is or is not around it, and having the machine say, replace it, patch it, wrap it, or get rid of it. Did that help, Barry? Did that answer your question? Yeah.
Sorry.
She'll be over to you in a second.
There is a lot of courses right now on human systems integration, HSI. and getting HSI sooner in the design process as we integrate legacy with the next generation and use AI. Could you talk a little bit about HSI from your point of view, please?
Yeah, so interestingly, how many know that the Department of Defense and the Veterans Affairs are joining our health records? It's a great thing. I mean, as a vet, those of you vets out there, it'd be so great that you'll be able to go to one place and see your whole record. So as we get in the steering group and we're rolling out in the agreements between us, two of the most vocal folks as we're rolling this out are human factors people. And they're right at the head of the table with the steering group, and as we lay out our CONOPS and our agreements to work with each other, front and center is, I'm representing the VA, and this is what our practitioners have to deal with. From DoD, this is what our practitioners have to deal with. This is what our patients have to deal with. The family members, the dependents, are a little bit different. Now that said, we're going to get agreement that we're not going to adjust this COT software unless it's absolutely positively necessary. I sit on that board, and we have turned people down left, right, front, and center because we'll re-engineer how you fix a broken arm. Believe it or not, there are dozens of ways, depending on the hospital and the practitioner, to fix a broken arm, and we're saying there's one way we're going to do it. The broken arm will be fixed, and we'll have one workflow for that. So that's one example. Another example is we're rolling out agile development and DevOps. If you haven't read, there's lots of articles out there about Air Force Kessel Run, Navy's Compile to Connect, where human factors, again, on these steering groups and steering boards, have representation front and center. So what I can tell you is they're very vocal people, they're very passionate about what they do, and we pay attention to it.
Good afternoon. Tuhill's theorem is the postulate that if the human lifespan is 75 years and the lifespan of a computer is 3 years, then each computer year is equivalent of 25 man years. Given that theorem, how do you see IT legacy development and migrating off of legacy IT moving forward at the Department of Defense?
Well, we have Tuhill here. He can explain it to us. Was that Tuhill you said? Yes.
That's for you. I'm grading you.
Thank you. So part of the reform effort is we're looking at, as we're looking at what we can migrate to the cloud as fast as we can. And in fact, this past Tuesday's large group meeting, one of the things that Secretary Mass said flat out, he said, we have to stay focused on sustainment. If we can't sustain it now, and we can't sustain it for the lifetime of the capability, we simply should not buy it. So first thing is we stop the bleeding. And in the National Defense Strategy quarterly reviews, Secretary Mass is laser focused on that. He will ask questions okay, how are you going to sustain that? Secondly, as we're looking at readiness, what are we going to kill, or what are we going to reform to pay for the technology we need to get to competitive overmatch? All I can tell you is, since I've been in the department, and I've started in government in the department in 2006, we have never been so laser focused on technical debt, legacy systems, getting off of them to be able to invest on something that's either going to be more capable for that lethality or more cheaper so we can add lethality to something that's not IT.
So Tommy said 2 million shortage for the cyber workers. So what's the government plan to fulfill that?
Okay, so that number, I think I'm about right. That was from either ISC squared, the CISSP folks, or the Gartner folks. So within the department, our Congress has done some really great things for us. How many people have served in the military? Okay, so you know a lot of it's about seniority, because there's a good thing about seniority and maturity. When you're leading young folks against people who are going to shoot at you, or you need to shoot at them, there's something to be said about, knowledge grows into wisdom, right, over age. You got to make some mistakes to get knowledge, to get wisdom, and that takes time usually. Unless you're my sons when they were younger, they learned really quick because they made lots of mistakes and did stupid things really quickly. But can you believe the military departments now have the option to take somebody off the street and make them a colonel, a captain in 06, right off the street, never having any military experience before? If they're a cyber person and they have a capability or a skill or knowledge that we have, the departments have the capability to take them right off the street and make them an 06 or kernel. That is unheard of for a lot of reasons. A lot of departments in medicine, they can hire, I think, up to an 04 and 05. A lot of engineers and other skills, they can bring them in as a lieutenant or a 03 captain, ensign type. That is a really big deal, because that shows that we're looking for people with skills, capability, maturity, knowledge. Second piece is we are in our second phase of the cyber accepted workforce. And the cyber accepted, how many people are familiar with the GS scale, general schedule? Some of you aren't, so what I'll tell you is most of the workers in federal government are on what's called a general schedule. It goes from a grade 1, and I've actually met a few of those, all the way to a grade 15. Within each of those grades, there are what's called steps. There are pay steps, and it allows you to pay certain amounts of money. In the cyber accepted workforce, we went from a 10-step grade to a 12-step grade, number one. Number two, we can direct hire these folks right into positions at any of those steps as far as salary. Next bit is you have an ability through a proper process to pay bonuses and retention for hitting certain marks, like for certifications and so forth. So again, we have another capability. It's never going to be as much as industry has, but it hopefully is enough with all the neat things you can do in government to make it palatable or enticing or interesting, or at least able to attract and retain additional folks in government. And the other thing is we just give you the evil eye if you take folks from us, you out there in industry. Now we're happy that they go to industry and they're staying with the nation.
Is there anything that we as ACT-IAC and a community can do to help with the RMF being such an inhibitor to agility in what the DoD needs to do?
So have you stopped beating your dog yet? So RMF is tailorable. RMF is about risk. It is hard to train people to assess risk because people like compliance, because it's black and white. If RMF is used right, it can be much faster. If people are willing to accept reciprocity, accept the results of somebody else's testing, say it wasn't invented here, so I'm not using their test results, RMF can be much more effective than the past ways to do accreditation or assessments. It's just people have to have the knowledge, skills, and intestinal fortitude to do it. They need to be able to sign their name at the bottom and say, I accept the risk. That said, we realize it's an evolving thing, and some of the things we're doing, in fact, I mentioned Kessel Run. Kessel Run is an Air Force DevOps agile development factory. In fact, Secretary Wilson just announced we got the code from F-35 logistics system, and before it was not ours to manipulate, update, manage. We now have it, and we've now got it in Kessel Run. So Kessel Run has got a way to automatically build in RMF controls to not only the code, but how the code is deployed and the systems it's deployed on. So a couple answers. One, people aren't doing RMF right, and they need to do RMF right. You need to have the intestinal fortitude and it's risk management, right? You need to be able to say, I'm signing at the bottom of this piece of paper saying I'm accepting the risk, I understand what it is, and I've communicated it to leadership. And we all agree it's the right thing to do. Secondly, as we evolve it, we are going to automate more of it, probably apply machine learning and artificial intelligence to it. Did that help? No?
The question is, how can we support you in that? Is there anything that ACT-IAC can do with education and spreading the word?
Okay, sorry, I missed that part. Yeah, we need to help people understand how to learn to manage risk and how to read it to say, this stuff is tailorable. That's the best thing I can tell you. Next thing is, in the next iteration, it's going to be coming out, release 5, I think, in a few months. It's going to talk about automatically doing risk management. I am so sorry I missed that first part. Thank you.
Thanks. Hi, Tom. What is, if you can, share your long-term strategy with CAT cards as you consider migration efforts?
Okay. So we will be looking at multiple factor authentication methods, mostly because CAC has limitations on installations, but in particular has limitations out at that tactical edge. That said, the CAC card is not just logical access to computer systems, it's access to military bases, it's access to facilities, to rooms, to spaces. It's also not just ours, but we are now going to do CAC Next, which incorporates the federal PIV into it. So now we're going to be even more interoperable with the federal government. So also, right now in the Department of Defense, the Geneva Convention requires a physical card. So as long as that's required, we can make use of that for a whole variety of things. For the Tactical Edge, many of you may have heard about DISA has a mobility group, and one of the things they're looking at is, do I have my phone with me? Is how we use this or some other near-field communication device that will take multiple factors, like I'm Tom, I'm normally at work between 8, well, actually I'm normally at work between 6 and 6 at night or longer. So if I'm at work and I've got this and I'm doing certain things, it's a high likelihood it's me. And depending on the likelihood of all the factors, it will allow me to do certain things on the network. So we're looking at that. We're looking at biometrics. We're looking at a variety of things. So we are transitioning to other capabilities, but the CAC is going to be around for a while.
Good afternoon, sir. People are bringing up college football, but people have neglected to mention Army-Navy on the 8th.
We don't need to. Army's going to win. It's a foregone conclusion.
Yes, sir. So you mentioned Kessel Run earlier, and I know that at least that I've seen with the Air Force, they're starting to we're starting to see a little bit more prototyping as a cost-saving strategy. Mm-hmm. And I was wondering if you could talk more about how that is reflected in the NDS and across the wider DoD, please.
Yeah, so we have some authorities now for acquisition on prototyping, and prototyping can actually legitimately transition to a program of record. We're encouraging both through agile development and just getting ahead of the competition, going out there and trying and hopefully succeeding, but if not, failing and learning, getting the learnings. You'll hear a lot about in the building about learnings and applying learnings to apply toward competitive advantage. And Kessel Run is one. There are multiple throughout the department. They don't have catchy names that I can remember. But prototyping is heavily encouraged, highly encouraged, and we're doing more of it.
Tom, thanks for being here. In terms of the role of the CIO, in connection with other parts of DoD that are looking more to the future, Army Futures Command, DIU, how do you relate to all of them and how do you keep up?
Yeah, so a couple things. Mr. Deasy describes his role as not Chief Information Officer, but Chief Stitching Officer. In the department, you know, military, people think military is very hierarchical. Well, it is to a certain extent, but the departments out there, they love to run and say, hey, I'm developing for my soldier, I'm developing for my sailor, which is absolutely legitimate. What comes into play is when you have to go across all the Department of Defense to create one capability. So a couple things we're doing. Congress gave us another authority. We will have for the first time in 12 years, I think, we'll have a Senate-confirmed Chief Information Officer come 1 January, or at least come 1 January, we have to nominate and hopefully get confirmed a Senate-confirmed Chief Information Officer. With that, we hope will come some additional authorities. Congress has already given Mr. Deasy authority to certify the budget. So in the past, all the budgets basically went up the food chain to Congress, and OMB in Congress, and was blessed off. Now, Mr. Deasy has certified that the departments are putting monies towards the priorities of the Secretary and the nation. So we're in that process now, learning how to do that. We have more help from the Secretary and Deputy Secretary and the service secretaries and the chiefs of the service, or the commandants of the services, than we've ever had before. So he's busy stitching all that together, and we've got a lot of head cover, both from the Hill, the White House, and within the department itself. He's stitching away madly, and he's doing a really good job at it.
Good afternoon, sir. Dan Kowalczyk with Interpros Federal. I was wondering if you could expand on the supply chain risk management approach that you are exploring, and how deep down the supply chain you want to go in the third party and fourth party suppliers, and the analysis that would go into that. Hardware and software, of course, are two different balls of wax to unravel there.
Yeah, there's a couple parts to that. We have a couple of task forces that were stood up. One is supply chain pieces parts coming in. We have several authorities. One is Section 806, where for national security systems, we have an ability to do a threat assessment against it. Based on a threat assessment, the head of A&S, Acquisition and Sustainment, and the Chief Information Officer can recommend to the Secretary to ban that product from all of national security systems. That was originally to expire this past October. It's been extended now for perpetuity, and actually gives us a little bit more authorities. We also have the 889, Section 889 authority, which bans Huawei, ZTE, and a few others. The task force is going out to look at how we can best look at more of what we're buying and how we can more rapidly assess the threat and intervene in the supply chain. Break. The other piece is stuff that we build. And I mentioned the Defense Industrial Base. There's a clause that basically says if you're contracting with the Department of Defense, you have to meet a certain standard. 800-171. It's in this standard. In the past, we, in most cases, took self-assertion that you're meeting it. We're now, because the clause allows us to do it, going out and actually assessing that you're actually doing it, because we have found that there are some problems. So what you'll see, there's another task force to look at this and how we go about and approach it. We're also working through a forum called the Enduring Security Framework, which is partnered with DHS and DNI on how we engage industry at that level to help protect our intellectual property. And the clause goes all the way down to the lowest subcontractor, and it holds the prime responsible for ensuring that lowest subcontractor meets the minimum standards. We're looking at a variety of ways to help. One of the things that has come up is how about we create a government furnished equipment cloud, and for certain things, if you want to meet the clause, perhaps we will have this available to you. This is still in early days. Early days. So if it goes out and says, we're doing this, Tom says we're doing this, we're not doing it, we're looking at doing it. And we're also looking for other ideas on how we can help our industry partners keep things secure. They're also doing it on the federal side. Grant Schneider is the federal CISO, right after General Toohill, and he's looking at the legislation that we have and the things that we're doing. So we're partnering again across the entire federal industrial base on securing this stuff. So again, don't take away that Tom says we're doing this. Tom says we're looking at doing this. We're looking for good ideas. Yeah.
Thank you, Tom. That was just superb. And I'd like to thank you all for joining us this evening. And we have a networking reception. If you go out these doors, you go back, you make a left, go back to where the table was, where you got your badge. There's a room right near there that we'll be congregating in. So please join us for some drink and some food. Okay? Good evening.